Hi everyone, thank you for viewing the virtual open house to showcase the Portsmouth Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. My name is Jennifer Baldwin and I'm with Alta Planning and Design, and it's been our privilege to work with the City of Portsmouth on the development of the first Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. And this presentation is meant to provide a project overview, and I'm going to walk through the various elements of the draft plan and recommendations, and then demo the different ways that you can share your thoughts and engage in the planning process. Because although we can't be together in person because of social distancing and COVID-19, we are excited to provide some online methods for you to share your feedback to make sure that our draft plan reflects your priorities. So what is a bicycle and pedestrian plan, and why is the City of Portsmouth developing the very first bicycle and pedestrian plan? And really the vision for this plan is to create an active community where bicycling and walking are safe, healthy, and fun activities. The project identified key routes, connections, obstacles, and opportunities in order to prioritize areas for future implementation and connect a network of high-quality bikeways, sidewalks, and trails for the Portsmouth community. This is a graphic that just showcases our schedule. So we started the project last summer and had various different touch points for the community to provide feedback. And now we are in this phase 4 where we have the draft plan. It's been available for public feedback. We've already gotten a lot of great comments and edits. And we are nearing the end of our public engagement process. So we wanted to put this resource out there so we can make sure that our final round of edits really reflects community feedback before the project is adopted, and then we can move into implementation of the plan recommendations. So one of the first activities that we did as a part of the planning process was to develop a vision statement for what we want Portsmouth to be in the future if this plan were implemented. And our vision statement is that the City of Portsmouth Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan builds upon efforts from the city to create an active community where bicycling and walking are safe, healthy, and fun for all ages and abilities. And in order to achieve that vision, we outlined 7 specific goals that have been interwoven into the plan recommendations throughout the process. And those goals are to enhance connectivity, create a positive economic impact, protect the environment, promote equity, enhance health, increase safety, and increase livability. So now I'm just going to go over a very high-level review of the various chapters and elements of the draft plan. And please stick with us, and at the end of this process, we're going to show you where you can find the details, because there's a lot of information. There's maps that you can interact with and have much better scale than what I can show you on the PowerPoint. So definitely, stay tuned to the end and know that the detail exists on the website, and we're available for any questions if you have them. So the first thing that we did is we really wanted to understand the existing conditions around walking and biking in Portsmouth today before jumping into developing recommendations. And so we did a lot of field work to be in the community and observe how people were using the streets. And what we found was there's a lot of people walking, especially in the downtown area and along our transit corridors. And there is some biking happening. There's not a lot of a connected network, which I'll talk about later, but we saw some biking happening in the roadway, along the sidewalks, and really trying to access those key destinations across the city. And so we also wanted to take our field review and our public engagement and do a more detailed data-driven analysis as well. And so we did 3 defined analysis to really understand the existing conditions more. On the map on the left, as you'll see, are demand analysis results. And this just takes various inputs where we expect people to be walking and biking in Portsmouth. Where are the areas and the hot spots? And you can see those dark red areas are surrounding those key destinations such as retail, parks, community centers, where people live, high population density, and that results in areas that we can determine to be the highest demand for walking and biking infrastructure. And then we also did the middle map showcases the results of an equity analysis. And it's really important for the city to prioritize equitable access to transportation. And so we wanted to understand where our most vulnerable populations live. And we did this by pulling census data and developing this composite map that takes various inputs such as age. As we know, our older and youngest populations are more vulnerable to transportation inequities, as well as race, income, and access to vehicle, and several other indicators to really try and highlight where areas of highest need are. So again, when we start developing and reviewing recommendations, we can prioritize areas where we have our greatest need. And then we also looked at safety and looking and mapping out previous crashes across the city from 2016 to 2019 to identify if there's any clusters of crashes, if there's engineering improvements that can be made to help reduce some of these safety hazards across the city. The existing networks, are very critical in our existing condition review. So we have 354 miles of existing sidewalks, which you can see, there's a great grid of existing sidewalks in the downtown area. And as they expand outside of downtown, but then the network starts to break down on some of those larger corridors and multimodal corridors, as well as in some of the neighborhoods. And then there's also 2 miles of existing multi-use paths or trails. On the bike network side, we have 7 miles of bike lanes, 8 miles of shared roadways, or otherwise known as sharrows, 2 miles of existing multi-use paths, and then 1.5 miles of a wide shoulder that can be used for biking. And you can see there's not a lot of connectivity of these networks that exist today. There's some, and you can tell there's been a lot of effort, and especially on this downtown area, when you pair it with streets that have low traffic and low volumes, you can have more of a connected network. But we know on the biking side, it's very critical that a cyclist or someone that leaves their house can get to their destination in a connected network, because if they can't, then they're likely not going to choose to bike for that commute or that trip. And so really focusing on connectivity of a network is very critical on the bike planning side. The plan also really details, we tried really hard to make sure that we were reflecting community values, and to do that we needed to be in the community and talk to community members. And so we had various tools set up to help make it easy for people to share their thoughts. And we asked questions like, where are they currently walking? Where do they want to be able to walk but can't, and why? And we had an online map where people could zoom into their neighborhood and draw their routes or their needs. And so this chapter really outlines everything we heard and how we're going to take that and use that to be the foundation of our recommendations. We have a chapter devoted to program and policy recommendations, and the beginning and the foundation of this chapter is also the partnerships. And the City of Portsmouth has worked hard to maintain good partnerships and relationships with various agencies and nonprofits and stakeholders across the city and across the region. And those are going to be critical moving forward on some of these recommendations in this chapter. And this chapter was organized into 4 different topics of recommendations. The first being policies, where we looked at complete street policy recommendations, really thinking through what it means to be a complete street and the design components, and drafting out a policy language for the city to consider. And then we also looked at maintenance policies as well as safety around a Vision Zero goal of getting to 0 traffic deaths. Another topic was design, and looking at the various design guidelines and resources available today, and developing recommendations for programs such as the pop-up demonstration project, which really provides the ability to test new infrastructure and allows for immediate public feedback and early detection of obstacles before making larger investments in long-term projects. The third topic would be programs, really expanding on existing programs and recommending new ones, looking at our Safe Routes to Schools, Safe Routes to Parks program, expanding all the different efforts across the region to promote bicycle and pedestrian education, safety, and encouragement. And then finally, we outlined evaluation recommendations to make sure that we are looking at what we've done, what we're currently doing, and evaluating our success. And a key part of that is to engage the community around a citizen advisory committee that helped us along the way of this planning process, and it really lays out the vision of connecting that committee and having that be an active committee moving forward to oversee the implementation of this plan and other walking and biking policy and program and infrastructure projects and engagement opportunities with the city. And then, of course, we have a chapter devoted to the development of a proposed sidewalk network, and, building off of our existing condition and findings. We also took feedback from our citizen advisory committee, from all the various public engagement that we received, guidance and input from the city and from Virginia DOT, as well as doing our field work to understand some of the feasibility of recommendations, and then also doing a review of previous recommendations from plans and studies to make sure that we are coordinating and cohesive across various planning efforts. And our network on the sidewalk side is divided into 4 specific tiers. And we did this because there's a lot of need of sidewalk. There's a lot of missing sidewalk gaps across the city. And we wanted to prioritize and think about them through the lens of 4 specific topics. Tier 1 is missing sidewalks along multimodal corridors. And these are the major thoroughfares that, connect our city and connect it throughout the region that typically have higher traffic and higher volume. And so there's 38 miles of missing sidewalks along these designated multimodal corridors. Tier 2 is transit. So it's really critical to think about pedestrian access to bus stops because everybody is a pedestrian at some point of their transit trip. And so there's 117 miles of missing sidewalks within a quarter mile of a bus stop that we wanted to particularly look at and have that be a defined tier. And then tier 3 is recreation and education, and really prioritizing and looking at access to parks and schools. So there's 37 miles of missing sidewalk within a quarter mile of a park or a school in Portsmouth. And then finally, the final tier is looking at missing sidewalk gaps along regional connections. And so there's 19 miles of missing sidewalk within a quarter mile of a regional trail in Portsmouth. And then once we've identified and grouped all of these missing sidewalk gaps, it was really critical for us to work through a process to prioritize investment because, like I said, there's a lot of need across the city and there's limited resources. And so how do we identify those priority projects? And we went back to our existing condition findings and we identified and assigned scores based on the 3 different analyses. And so we assigned the project scores based on safety, the pedestrian collisions that occurred along the project length, looking at equity, whether it's in that high need and high where vulnerable populations are throughout the city to really focus around and prioritize our high need areas. And then looking at demand and what are our indicators of demand along that project segment. What the population density, employment centers, retail, access to existing key destinations such as parks, trails, schools, and colleges, as well as transit. So once we assigned those scores, then we also wanted to take a look at the projects in terms of several factors around implementation. So looking at the land use context, the transportation context, what the roadway looks like, what the right-of-way looks like, really reviewing and taking into account the public input that we heard, as well as the connections to the existing network. So a segment that would connect and fill a critical gap would receive more points than a segment that wouldn't connect to anything. And so this process, which again, you'll find all the details in the draft plan, resulted in our project list. And so we identified priority segments within each tier and have the detailed spreadsheets where you can find the information on project length, the to and froms, and the various elements of prioritization. And then on the Bikeway side, it's critical to first recognize who we're designing our Bikeway network for. And nationally, we know that the general population can be grouped into 4 different types of cyclists. And the majority of people lie within a group we called interested but concerned. That's about 60% of the population. And basically that means I like to bike, I'm interested in biking more, but I'm concerned about traffic and I'm concerned about my safety. And through national research and international examples and case studies, we know that that group is often more likely to bike when they're separated from traffic, whether that be a shared use path, a bike lane, a cycle track. You know, there's a lot of different tools in our toolbox, but we know that that separation is critical in order to get more people biking from that interested but concerned group. And so we took that approach as we started to develop the network, and the resulting network, which you'll see here, is organized into 3 different categories of recommendations. And there's 82 miles of proposed bikeways, and that's about 45 miles of shared use paths. And you'll find these blue dashed lines, mainly along those major arterials and multimodal corridors that have the higher traffic, higher speeds, that really no one except our most experienced cyclists are going to feel comfortable riding on, and unless there's that separation. So that's where that shared use path is critical to allow a low stress experience for all users. And then we have 15 miles of on-street bike facilities. Those are your bike lanes, buffer bike lanes if there's room, and those are along some of the more minor arterials and collector streets that don't carry as much traffic. And then the final category is our neighborhood bikeways, which we have about 22 miles. And those are these teal dashed lines on the map. And we're excited about this network because this is a fairly low cost, low implementation need. And the focus and goal of the neighborhood bikeway is to create low traffic, low speed opportunities and alternatives to those busier corridors. And it's not always easy to find these connections because of our grid. And sometimes, you know, in the Southeast in our country, our grids are not great and we don't have as much of a connected roadway network, but there are opportunities to create some of these links that helps residents, you know, see how they can get from their neighborhood to their destination without going on those major arterials and the high traffic corridors. And so the goal of this Bikeway network overall is to provide a low stress opportunity for people to choose biking or to have a safer, low stress biking option when that's their only choice of transportation, whether that be for commuting to work or for recreational trips. And then similarly to the Sidewalk Network, we also wanted to prioritize our investment on the bikeway side. And so we also looked at equity, demand, and safety, but we added 2 new indicators for bikeway prioritization. One is to look at implementation and looking at feasibility of the project. And so this is looking at traffic volumes, existing right-of-way, really trying to prioritize those projects that could be fairly low cost and implementation could move forward quicker. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, really focusing and prioritizing on connectivity and building a connected network and expanding that out, you know, to really help to connect a network and the destinations that people want to be able to bike to. We also have a chapter devoted to shared mobility, and this is looking at the potential for bike and scooter share system in Portsmouth. And to do that, we first wanted to do a demand analysis around scooter or bike share programs. And you can see these circles really indicate those clusters of high demand where we can expect a scooter share or bike share program to be successful. And as you can imagine, those clusters are around you know, areas of high demand that I showed you earlier. So the greater downtown area, you know, Midtown, Churchland Park to the north, West Park Homes and Manor to the west. And so you can see there's these small little clusters of where it could be successful. And then this map here just shows, based on our existing network, potential barriers to connecting these clusters of demand. And this is where it's going to have to go hand in hand on implementing the recommended bike network at the same time as introducing some of these shared mobility options within the city. This chapter also outlines a lot of different policy implications and recommendations for starting a bike share or scooter share program in Portsmouth. And we're really excited to hear your thoughts about if you would like to see a share program, what your needs are, and what your ideas and thoughts are. And then finally, we have a chapter devoted to implementation. And this is where we really talk about the different roles for implementation, who's going to be involved, set some guidelines for some performance measures, and what project implementation looks like. And we've also identified 5 projects across the city to go into a little bit more detail and provide implementation guidance. And those will also be available on the website for more review. And the intent of these, not that these are the highest priority projects across the city, they're really representative projects to showcase the various implementation opportunities and challenges that will be experienced and expected across the city as we move towards implementation. And that's my very high-level overview of the plan. And now I'd like to share with you a couple of ways that you can virtually share your thoughts on the draft plan. So first and foremost, please go to our Portsmouth BikePed plan website, and you can find that at portsmouthbikepedplan.com. And this is where you can review the full plan. You can send us comments, and then take a look at an interactive map that we have of the recommendations and comment on that directly and zoom into the areas that you're most interested in. So I am going to demo some of our tools for you just to kind of showcase what's available and how you can get involved. So like I mentioned, everything is housed. So you can find all the information that you need and the tools on our website, which is portsmouthbikepedplan.com. And you can see this welcome message, and this is where you can see the draft plan. There's also a separate page for it. But if you click on this draft plan link, it'll take you to the full PDF of the report. And like I mentioned, this is a long report. I just glossed over the highlights, but the detail, if you're interested, and we encourage you to please read this and please give us feedback, is here, all from the benefits of walking and biking, really detailing our goals and our process, existing conditions, and then much more zoomed in scale of maps of our different analysis and our recommendations. So please definitely, if you have a few minutes to take a look and read the plan, and let us know if you have any questions or comments. And then this recording will be available on the website as well, so you can review this. And then we also have, if you go to the Get Involved page, this showcases the different ways to get involved, and one being a really cool tool that you can mark up and interact with our recommendations on an online map, which I'll demo for you in a second. But we also have a comment form that you can go to easily type your name, your email, send us your question or your comment. This will get forwarded directly to the project team. And so we really encourage you to, if you have comments to submit or edits that you'd like to see, please let us know so that we can document those and incorporate during our final round of edits. And then there's also a lot of input and previous resources available to look at in terms of meeting minutes from previous meetings, materials from previous meetings and resources, regional connections and links on the city website, as well as region websites to resources for walking and biking. And then if you go to our contact page, again, this is another opportunity to send emails, but then you can also find information if you want to give Carl Jackson, who is the city's project manager for this project. He's happy to answer calls if you have questions or want to talk about the project. Here is our contact information on how you can reach us. So going back to that project map tool, this is when you click on that input map, it'll take you to a separate website of our interactive map, and there's a welcome message, and we encourage you, but you don't have to put your email address. It just allows us to put you into our network so that you'll receive updates on the project and track the number of users using the map. But you can either choose to give us your email address, or you can continue as a guest, which no email is necessary, but you do have to click on that link There's some short instructions at the top, a detailed project legend so you can understand what you're looking at. And it looks like a lot when you first come in at this scale, but when you zoom in, you can easily see the different recommendations. This map is showing both the sidewalk and the bikeway recommendations. And if you want to leave a comment, like say you did not see a recommendation that you really wanted to see, or you really love a recommendation, you would just go here to points. And then it allows you that if you have a scroll, you can go anywhere on the map. And let's just say I wanted to leave a point here. I love this recommendation. And then submit. And then your point showed up here. So definitely we encourage you to zoom into your specific neighborhood or your area of interest and give us comments. And then you can also, as you're looking here and this starts to be populated by your neighbors and your friends and family, you can see other people's comments and feedback that they're sharing. So that is it. That's all we have to showcase for you today in our virtual open house. But please, here's our contact information. Again, it's Carl Jackson at the City of Portsmouth, and he can be reached at 757-393-8836 or by email at jacksonc@portsmouthva.gov. Or you can also reach me directly, and that's Jennifer Baldwin at Alta Planning and Design at 984-329-5003 or Jennifer Baldwin at altaplanning.com. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I hope that you have time to go through our resources, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Take care and stay healthy.